or whether it was just like, I'm so full, I have to put the story somewhere. Like, it has to get out of me. You know, it doesn't matter. Like, you were just like, I have to get it down. It has to happen. And I know that you spent a long time not just writing the story down, which can be a very important process for people, but also trying to discover how to best tell the story so that you could publish it. Like, you weren't, and this is fine, I don't want to put this down for people. Like, it can be extremely important to write the story, but you were like, it's not enough for me just to write the story. I need it to also be a book that's published, that's out in the world. This needs to exist as an object that someone would want to buy and engage in. And
well, that's what you help people do. So.
That is what I help people do. That is, yes. When they're at that point where they're like, no, I can't stop here. I have to keep going.
Exactly.
This is it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, that was exactly, that was my experience. But the funny thing is I feel like I've had an evolution at this point. Like, when you're writing something and you feel that, the drive, I feel like a lot of people feel maybe the same drive as me. Like, it needs to get out there. I know if Tammy's still on here, I know she certainly felt that because I've talked to her a lot about it. And now, like, so the woman who created the L Word, who I was talking to today, we're talking about the book becoming a TV show.
Oh my God, awesome.
Or becoming a movie. I know, it's crazy. Having lots of conversations up here in Ohio. I'm definitely schmoozing the right people.
Awesome.
Sure.
So good.
And I was at a party with her the other night, so that's how I ran into her. But so we were, having the conversation, and she was saying that, like, it would be amazing to see my dream be actualized. And I was just like, my dream has been actualized.
Yes.
This was my dream, right?
Yes.
This was my dream. I'm not like, cool, if anything else happens with it, awesome. But really, I just wanted to write a book. I wrote the book. The book it's published, it's coming out, it's going to be living in the world. My dream feels actualized. And anything else is just, icing on the cake. But at the time, yes, I really did feel like this was a story everybody needed to read. And now I feel like I've had some revelations where I recognize that, like, this was for me. And even if it never goes anywhere, and I think we should all shoot for the moon, we should reach for the stars. But also I think that we should set ourselves up for success with just being present to the process rather than being disappointed because something didn't happen. And so I'm just recognizing for me that the experience I had and what went into writing it and what I discovered, because sure, the story was there, but it was like, I learned so much just writing it. I learned so much about myself, about my family members, about the character development. When I started to see the multidimensionality of the characters, like, I just learned so much that it feels like just that process was enough. So even if no one in the world ever buys the book, like, I don't care. I mean, that's not what's going to happen.
Right.
Yeah.
I was really struck by what you said on Facebook. That's why I reached out to you, that when people ask you, what's your book about? How do you answer that? And I think that is just a really opaque area for a really long time, because as you're writing it, you are figuring it out. Well, that's my guess. Like what you're saying, like the multidimensionality of the characters, and essentially you're seeing your own story from a different perspective as you're writing it. So you can say, like, okay, this is about my family. It's called Shit House because it was a shit house. I mean, I don't know if it was, but that's how you say it. Yeah. But then as you write it and you get this new multidimensional experience of your story, then how you answer that question, what the book is about, might start to change. Did that happen for you?
Oh my gosh, yes. I mean, the book was about so many things, and most of the time I had no idea what it was about. Right? Don't you have that experience with people?
Oh, yeah.
And not to plug the book coaches, but I also have to plug the book coaches. Like, the best thing that I ever did was work with you, work with my friend Kristen, work with Amy Wallen, work with Lisa, work with Bethany Saltman. These are the best. This is like, I feel like I would still be exactly where I was in 2015 if I hadn't found people in the literary world to support me, because guess what? They knew what do coaches do? They ask the right questions. And so for me, when I was so wrapped up in the because every day it was about something different, because I was writing something different and then I was processing something different. And every time I would let someone read it, meaning one of you guys, you know, one of my the people that I was working with, one of my teachers, the question was always the same. Well, it's like, okay, but what's it about? Because there has to be one continuous theme through, and sure, maybe there's some like, you know, there's an undercurrent of other things, but there's got to be something that pulls it all the way through to the end. So when you end, it's almost like you're answering the question of what was at the beginning.
Yeah.
And I would say that what helped me get there was you guys. Like having really great people alongside of me, asking me the right questions and really helping me see it from a more, you know, zoomed out perspective. And that's why it took so long to write, you know, is because I went through a million drafts. I went through a million revisions. I mean, it's like, it's not enough to tell the story. There has to be, it's like there's the story, but then there's the impact that the story had on you. There was my story, the things that had happened, but like, what does it mean later on in my life? You know, how did I work through that? And that's really the hero's journey, you know?
Totally.
And so I think when I started to look at it from that perspective, and I started to see and it was one of you guys who actually helped me see that, because before it was like this puzzle that needed to be solved. And there was all these different stories and pieces of the puzzle that needed to come together, because I like to do everything really difficult in a very difficult way and not start from the beginning and go to the end. I just like to do random shit and try to like figure out the puzzle, you know? But when I had people around me that were really supporting me and asking me the right questions and talking to me and educating me about all the components that create a really compelling read, that's when I was able to pull the thread all the way through from the beginning to the end. But I will say it actually didn't come until after I had even talked to you. It was last October. It was after I was already through the round of queries from all the agents I had actually, what are they called? The warm leads?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And I had blown all those warm leads, you know, before the book. The book wasn't even ready to be queried, honestly, until now, until like, you know, March of this year. But we have this like fake timelines that we create in our head and all this pressure. And I feel like that ends up being really debilitating for people. But yeah, that's really what helped me is it came to me. Someone started really talking to me about the hero's journey, and then it really just landed. And you know how sometimes you hear something a million times, but it doesn't matter. It has to be really the right moment in time for that information to land. And when it landed hard. And I went back through and I started writing the book in October from the beginning to the end. Even though, so I had taken all the stories that I had and I just wrote from beginning to end. And once I knew what this theme was, like it was already there, but it wasn't as at the surface as it needed to be, if you know what I mean.
Did you actually rewrite the entire book?
Well, no, I mean, I took everything, copy, paste, boom, and then I started going through everything and then really emphasizing what that theme was, because it was here, it was already there. It's just I hadn't discovered really what it was until I discovered it, you know?
Right.
And
Totally.
I discovered it because I had support, and I discovered it because that's what happens. It's not like, I'm not sure that you start your writing process and you're like, well, this is what I'm going to write, and this is what my theme is going to be, and this is how it's going to this is the plot. No, you discover it, you know? And so
it's true. It's
Yeah.
true. I like it. I like that you said that you figured out what your book was or what the theme was that held it together when you were all the way through the querying process. Not because it's the wrong thing, but it's almost like when your book came into the world and crossed that threshold from your world into the market world, and you had suddenly it was real. I can imagine that there might have been a reconfiguring that you were going through at that time of like, oh, wait, were any agents asking you questions that made you discover that
That was
thing?
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was it too. Because um, I think sometimes the feedback is quite, it's so hard for us, you know, because we're so deep in it and it's so personal. Um, and it can be hard for us to, and then when you've worked on something for as long as we've all, you know, we work on our memoirs or our novels or whatever, to, for someone to tell you, maybe you need to add this, or maybe it's not quite complete, or, and then to have like 20 people tell you the same thing, it's like you have to listen to that, you know? So that's why I keep coming back to, I feel like if it wasn't for all the support that I had around me from literary people like you, and the feedback from the agents, and because your friends are just going to be like, oh my god, it's amazing, I totally get what it's about, and your husband's going to be like, it's amazing, it's going to be a movie, and then you send it out to agents and they're like, this
They're
is,
like, mm.
yeah, they're like, it's not done, like you're really asking people to invest in a lot here, like you need to do, you know, this and this and this, and it's hard to hear that,
Yeah,
and
it's
I
hard.
can't tell you like how many I have cried so many times. And I think that's also why I'm kind of like, I'm going to do my best and I'm going to get it out there. And I've done my best.
You
And it is
have.
out
You
there. And I have
really have
sold,
done an incredible job.
and I have sold a lot of books for
Amazing.
someone, like, I'm pretty sure I've sold more books than my publisher has ever sold. So, and we're just like, we have several months, you know, until this goes down. But that's also why I'm kind of like, it's kind of like, let it be, like inshallah, like it's out there, and then it's just gonna have an energy of its own, and I'm gonna let go of my own attachment to you know, what happens to it. I've cried enough tears over this book.
So one of the things that you said in your post that I loved also was finding the heart and soul of your book.
uh,
And like you said before, that's not a one and done thing. You don't start a project saying, I know what the heart and soul of my book is. It is something that is revealed to you through the writing, but you have to start somewhere. Do you remember, this is totally putting you on the spot. So do you remember where you started? Like when you started, what was were you like, the heart and soul of my book is X. Do you remember what that was?
oh I wait, so I really don't think that I, are you asking about the first time it popped up, or
The first, when you started writing, the first flush of writing.
Um, no, it was not there. It was not there. It was literally just like, I need to tell this story and I am going to get this story out. But I wasn't like, I really don't feel like it came until later. I just felt like, um, this, I have a story to tell, and I know I have risen above, um, where I come from, and I am not a heroin addict, and I didn't die in prison, and I don't live in the Tenderloin, and I'm still alive, and I have a job, and you know, and that is already, that's just rising above where I come from. And I knew that other people needed to read that story because there is a lot of people out there that are just like me, and they want to be better than where they come from. They want to rise above, but they don't know. What we know is only relative to what we've experienced. And you know, my family, like, I didn't come from a family of artists. I don't know one. I mean, everyone is intrinsically creative. It's just that no one had disciplined that in my family. You know, my family is just like people that were just working 9 to 5 and keep their shit together and like, and pay the rent. And yeah, so I didn't have any influences, and so I didn't know any better. And I wanted to be more than where I came from. And I really wanted to share that story with people because I knew that other people could relate. And that was the big thing, is it was like, I feel like this could be healing for other people. I feel like it could be permission for other people to not go down the same road as their parents, or not go down the same road as everyone in their lineage. And so that was there. I think that was the drive actually for me to write the book, and probably, but like really distilling down the transgenerational trauma piece, that one took a while.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Amazing. And when you got that feedback from agents and you were like, oh, I don't know, and then suddenly you knew, what was that thing that you knew, if you don't mind sharing? Like what the through line was that you went back and you're like, okay, I'm going to emphasize this more.
Yeah, I think it was someone's feedback was like somewhere in the first chapter, it said like, something about, wanting to break the patterns and habits of my family. And they had said, I think this needs to be in there more. This needs to be, and for me, it like just became so clear. And also simultaneously, I was studying the physiology of trauma, and the psychology of transgenerational trauma. And it was just like, and it's funny because all these things, I thought they were all separate things. They're not.
Mm-hmm.
Like all the things that are going on in your life, like it is all just right on time. It is all in there. It is all integrated. It is not arbitrary. And I think when I started to see the constellation of things around me were all a part of this story, and that I couldn't separate because at first I just wanted to like tell this story about the things that happened, but I wanted to like leave yoga and leave all of this other stuff out of it. And then I realized like, oh my God, I can't do that. And so that's when I really started going back and adding in all that stuff. Like, why am I trying to leave this out? Like, this is who I am.
Mm-hmm.
So
mm-hmm. Amazing. Yeah, really opening yourself up to what the story is trying to be. And it sounds a little bit like, this has been my experience with memoir and my clients' experience with memoir also, that when you really go to that raw place in yourself, you're like, I'm not going to prematurely censor what's in here, then these mysterious connections start happening, and you make connections, and also you get help in this weird way. Like something pops up and it's like, hey, you want to do this thing? You're like, oh, that's interesting. And you sort of look at it and you're like, oh my God, this is like 1,000% relevant to what I'm doing with the book right now.
Yes.
I didn't realize.
Yep. That's what I mean. Like things just land at the right time where you're like, I've heard that, 100 times. And for some reason it's just right now, it ends up making sense. And so, yeah, it's just been like, it's been a really amazing process. And like, I look at this and I'm just like, I feel like this sounds so woo-woo, and I'm more, I'm woo-woo too, but I'm like definitely a science person. I want to understand like, how things really make sense. But I honestly like don't even know where this came from. Like, I'm like, who wrote that? How did that happen? How did that all come together? How did it, because there's so many moving parts and there's so many things, happening, and so many people helping me. So to even open it up on any page, and there's no, it's been copy edited like a million times, and to see no mistakes, I'm just like, what? Like, it's so gratifying, it's like, it's to really feel the completion of this thing. It's just like, it makes me tear up even thinking about it. It's just like, I knew I was going to do this since I was 14,
Yeah.
And now I did it.
And you did
now
it.
It's been actualized. So, and I'm sure my dreams will evolve as well, but I'm really, I'm just letting it go. And also I'm going to put it out there.
Yeah. Why not? Why not? And that fulfillment of a dream, like you are living evidence of this right now, of like something in you really needed this. And that speaks to people's drive to write books. We really need to tell that story. And we also really need to be in the mystery of telling that story. And yeah, you're getting lots of love in the chat. To make this thing happen, and also to bring yourself into the world as an author. Like you weren't an author 6 years ago. Now you are an author, and you as an author did this incredibly interesting thing, and you changed in the process. So you created the thing created you. And we're
and
celebrating.
It's funny, I'm still not like people are like, what do you do? I'm like, I don't know. I walk my dog around the neighborhood. That's like what I do, but it's it's been a really amazing, it's an amazing process. And one thing that I do want to say, because I know we're kind of on the time limit here too, but like, I really, really, if I can do it, if I can complete the thing that I wanted to do my entire life, anyone can do it. But it's like, it might kill you in the process. But the feeling that, the feeling that comes along with completing your dream is so priceless. And so for me, it's like, I just want to encourage other people. I have like people hitting me up to coach me on and for me to coach them on their books. I'm like, no, that's not like, I don't want to, I don't even know how this happened, but like, if I can do it, you can do it. And I want everyone to do that. Like, that is part of our existential crisis, is people aren't going out and, actualizing their dreams. So that's part of this book, is like, if I can do it, you can do it.
Yes.
And I hope people do. And thank you for doing your work.
Oh gosh. Are you kidding? I feel like it's work in one sense, like running a business, but on the other sense, I feel like I am involved in something magical for other people that I get to be there for,
Yeah. You're like the fairy godmother.
I hope so. Yeah. So it sounds like finding the heart and soul of your book really was a process. It happened by going in and coming out, and going in and coming out, meaning like getting in there in the weeds, and then coming out and having someone ask you questions where you're like, oh, I haven't thought about that. And then going back in again, and having being able to cry the tears, and having the resilience to say, yeah, but I'm not done.
Yeah. Oh, there's many times that I thought that I was done and not that I was like, I'm pretty sure this is done. It's so amazing. No, that was never it. It was like, I can't fucking do this anymore.
Right.
Yeah, right. That was definitely my experience with it. But if I have one piece of advice for people, because I really struggled with this, is let go of the timeline. Let go. Of course, like, a timeline also helps motivate us, but the timeline that we've created, it's made up. It is make believe. And this is why I think people end up publishing things way before they should publish them, or they get frustrated and then they just self-publish, or, whatever it is. But then, and that's totally fine too. There's lots of different avenues, but just let go of the timeline, because it's also like, you evolve through the process. Like, I am on the other side of this. I'm a different person, and I wouldn't take any of it back. And when you can let go of the timeline and just let things unfold and do your work, and then step back from it and take a month, go to Greece, don't go anywhere, take a staycation, and really metabolize what you've written, and then go back to it. Like, if you can give yourself a few years to do that without, jumping forward in steps, which is what I did, which is like, okay, when I came to you, I'm like, okay, now how do I get this published? It's like, dude, don't you think so many people struggle with that?
Yes. Well, there's a lot of artificial pressure, but I also understand you don't really know that till the end. Catherine's saying she's feeling that right now. She has had an amazing book journey, and her book is with a great agent.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
awesome.
She's right in it. I think that's really excellent advice. And it's just so awesome to hear your story. There's a lot of people going like, yes, I love this. This is great. And I really appreciate your forthrightness with your entire process, and your generosity with other writers and people who want to have books, and in getting the word out about your book and the writing process, what it means to be an author. It's
Yeah. Well,
great.
I do want to say too, in closing, that social media has been an absolutely powerful tool for getting my book out there. I'm not even allowed to share with some of the stuff that is happening on my end right now. But hi, Jess. But those things are happening because someone read what I wrote on social media, or someone found out about the book through social media or through a story that someone reposted. And now I'm having, like, all of that is because of social media. So another piece of advice is share your story. I mean, if you want to get it published, you're going to share it anyway. And social media really is a great platform and a great tool. One of the conversations like that I'm having with this one woman, she literally she's just been watching it unfold on my social media, another intro to another agent, same thing. It's just like, I think you might be interested in this, woman's book. And that is all just because people are finding out about it on social. So
that's awesome. That's
yeah.
so awesome. Yeah. Share. Don't be shy.
Yeah.
Share what you're doing.
Yeah.
People want to know about it, but people also want to help. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
They
Well, and I think that that's another discovery through this whole process. And the more literary contacts you can have, the better. Because I didn't know one literary person when I began this journey. None. And I was like, well, how would I kept jumping too far forward. And I was like, well, what's the point of even doing it? I don't know anyone in the literary world. How would I even ever get it out there? And it's like, don't think about that. It's right. One thing at a time. You're years from there, light years. Just
write the book.
The other. Just start writing. And, unless you're writing like a novel or, prescriptive nonfiction, then you need a book proposal, which means that you need you. So
come hit me up. I'm here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, this has been amazing. Thank you, Lauren. It's great to see you. Awesome to talk to you.
You too. Thank you. And, let's do it again. And
let's do it again.
There's still a lot unfolding, and I think a lot of conversations to be had. And I just really appreciate, the work you're doing. And you really are. It's funny because I remember hearing when Kim Johnson told me about you, I'm like, book doctor. That makes so much sense. Like, I'd never heard that before. Book coach, writing coach, editor, literature teacher, doctor. I was like, yeah, I need that. This thing needs some surgery. So thank you